Hey, I'm Blair Best. It's Tuesday here on The Story, and tonight, it's been nearly 3 decades since an unlikely movie star went on an incredible journey from Oregon to Iceland. We have footage from the KGW vault showing Free Willy's flight back home. Plus, confusion around the new COVID vaccine, what the state pharmacy board is saying about how many people are having a hard time getting an appointment, let alone the shot. But first, new video of an August stabbing outside the Multnomah County Library. Why county leaders say it plays a key role in depicting what actually led up to the incident and how it's different from what was originally reported by Portland police. It's our big story tonight. The 3 suspects indicted for the stabbing were arraigned in court this morning. Here they are. The 2 18-year-olds and a 21-year-old were arrested shortly after they allegedly stabbed a 44-year-old man and beat him with a skateboard back on August 25th. Now, they each face a series of charges, including assault and unlawful use of a weapon. This all happened on a Monday just after 5 p.m., right across the street from Multnomah County Central Library in downtown Portland. It's an area that's seen a lot of violence and drug activity in recent years. But this stabbing has county leaders speaking out, saying there's more to the story. So let's start with what police and library staff said happened. According to court documents, the 3 suspects were seen by library security arguing on the steps. The victim, who was across the street at the time, saw what he thought was a disturbance and tried to intervene, according to police. The suspects and the victim then all got into a shouting match, that's according to witnesses. The documents also say the library security guard heard one of the teens say, "F it, let's jump him," before running across the street and attacking the 44-year-old. The victim was then taken to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries, including multiple stab wounds. And the suspects hopped on a MAX train before they were arrested in North Portland. Okay, so that's what police and library staff say led up to the stabbing. But the county chair, Jessica Vega Pederson, believes it's more complicated than that.
For me, the concern was just being really conscious of how we are talking about and portraying young Black people and making sure that we're not falling back on, on kind of racial stereotypes as we're talking about things.
So last night, the chair released this new library security video of the August 25th stabbing. It has no audio, leaving many questions unanswered about what was said between the victim and the suspects during that shouting match. But it captures a different angle of the incident, showing the victim, the one in the white bucket hat, walking up to the 3 suspects, appearing to act aggressive towards them. It does not appear that he was trying to break up a disturbance or fight, which is how police initially characterized it.
I mean, it was really striking to me to see just how things had played out. That was different than what we had heard about.
Do you feel like the victim might have instigated some of this?
I think if you look at the video, you see what the interaction looks like, and you see that there is a definite back and forth that looked like was happening, and so that's what I want to make sure that people had access to be able to see that and really be able to see for themselves.
So later in the video, it shows the victim, again the one in the white bucket hat, swinging what witnesses told KGW was a belt at one of the suspects.
I think the video really speaks for itself, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted it to be released publicly so people could see. I think that there had been, a perception or even a statements that the person was intervening on when there was a disturbance, and there really wasn't. That's not what I saw in the video that played out.
Now, this also caught the attention of Multnomah County Commissioner Shannon Singleton. We caught up with her today.
I did see him chasing and hitting one of the young people with a belt. I also saw him with their skateboard at one point, but I couldn't tell what had led up to that. Yeah, I think for me, it was that there's more to this story, and not, again, being able to see the sequence of things and when he actually was stabbed. I'm not clear if he was defending himself or if it was the other way around. I don't think anything means that he deserved to be stabbed. I want to be really clear about that. That behavior is not acceptable either. For me, it's just about let's tell the full story, because the narrative was painting these young Black kids as aggressors in a situation that didn't necessarily tell the full story, that there was aggression, I think, on multiple, but from multiple parties from what I could see, because the way that the narrative was being told felt at a minimum laced with institutional racism.
Now, at the beginning of the video, multiple library security guards arrive at the scene, appearing to try and de-escalate the situation. The victim then walks across the street. The entire group eventually follows him. The security guards stayed by the library and watched from afar.
So they did exactly what their training was to do. And then again, we are responsible for the part of the area around the library that is library property. They did the right thing, absolutely, in calling the police when things were moving, onto the TriMet and across the street area. And so that was also very appropriate. So I'm actually really pleased at the way that county staff and security showed up.
Now, the stabbing and the skateboard beating was not visible in this video. The victim, after being attacked, returned to the front of the library, and that's when police arrived. Portland police would not talk with us on camera today. They told us to talk to District Attorney Nathan Vasquez. So we asked him. He would also not talk with us on camera today. But yesterday, in a statement, DA Vasquez said in part, all video footage was presented to the grand jury for their consideration. After presentation of the evidence, the grand jury returned an indictment for the defendants. My office will continue to vigorously prosecute violent crimes occurring in the immediate vicinity of the Multnomah County Library. The Portland Police Association posted on its Facebook page today, saying in part, for a county chair to put her thumb on the scale of justice, potentially polluting a future jury pool without access to all evidence and ignoring the will of a convened grand jury is truly shocking. It demonstrates a chilling lack of judgment and reduces the fundamental due process rights of both the victim and the suspect to political theater. The Police Association goes on saying the facts are clear. A Portland citizen was stabbed and assaulted. Police officers responded and took the suspects into custody without incident or force, and the case was fully investigated and presented to a grand jury. This is our justice system working correctly. So the saga continues. And as we all know, this is just the latest violent incident to happen near the Central Library. There was a deadly shooting in July right across the street, leading to finger pointing between the county and the city over who is in charge of keeping the library safe. But despite increased police patrols and security guards, there continues to be violence. And local business owners are growing increasingly impatient. Some spoke up today inside City Hall during a public safety committee meeting. Listen.
We moved our business into downtown at the end of 2022. And in that time that we have been there, and the main goal was to also be a part of the revitalization of the city because my business was in Southeast Portland prior to that. But in our tenure in downtown, we have experienced crime like high-end theft, vandalism, and 5 broken windows, blood on our windows, blood on our doors. We were the epicenter of the open-air fentanyl market for over 6 months, in which time I thought for sure I was going to fail. As of late, we can see a lot of the problems were emanating from the city library, and I wrote a letter to Jessica Vega Pederson at that point, concerned about the safety, because what we were seeing on a daily basis and still are seeing is people in active psychosis wandering right by. Just 2 days ago while I was at work, I had to bang on the windows to stop a drug deal from happening in front of my guests and customers.
We often see pedestrians forced into the street to avoid active drug use and dealing, and while employees are assaulted by individuals who are in crisis, property vandalized or damaged as a result of unchecked drug activity.
Okay, some business owners say they want to see more police on the streets in a proactive manner rather than just showing up after something happens.
It's hard and it's rough for us because we want the city to succeed and we don't know the solutions, but what we do know is that we don't feel safe.
We'd really like Portland to consider why we are tolerating this behavior.
Now, the library director has repeatedly declined our interview requests, but we're told she's working on new security recommendations that will be presented to county commissioners on September 30th.
We're focusing a lot on the library on this, but the larger conversation is about how we have a safer downtown overall, and making sure that the experience that people have to access any of our buildings and services are going to be able to happen. So this work is on the library, but I think the larger conversation we're happening is about how do we get people to see that like it is safe and good to come back downtown.
Okay, it's a question that comes up all the time, but here it is again. Do you feel safe downtown? Why or why not? If you avoid downtown for safety reasons, what needs to change to bring you back? Email us at thestory@kgw.com or call and leave us a voicemail, 503-226-5090. All right, let's talk about the COVID vaccine, because changes in vaccine policy are raising questions and causing a lot of confusion. We heard from a lot of you who have tried to make appointments to get the vaccine and are hitting walls. Here's a voicemail we got yesterday.
I'm 79 years old. I just find it appalling that our public health agencies apparently are not encouraging doctors to give a prescription to elderly people like me.
Now, we've heard from others who've had their appointments for the shot canceled or rescheduled suddenly. So what's going on? The problem has to do with several federal and state agencies. In August, the federal government announced the updated COVID-19 vaccines are now approved for people 65 and older, as well as kids and adults with at least one pre-existing condition that puts them at risk for severe illness. Previous versions of the vaccines had been recommended for nearly everyone, regardless of health status. But this year, that changed. Back in June, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fired the entire Vaccine Advisory Committee for the Centers for Disease Control, called the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices. He replaced them with fellow anti-vaxxers and people who have questioned the COVID vaccine. So although the FDA cleared the vaccine, the ACIP, that committee, has not yet issued its recommendation. They're expected to do that later this month. Now, let's get into state agencies. State policy forbids pharmacists from giving out the vaccine to anyone without a prescription until ACIP issues its recommendation. In recent years, the committee met earlier in the summer so that shots were available ahead of the winter respiratory season. Now they're not scheduled to meet until September 18th and 19th, when they may issue a new protocol. The Oregon Board of Pharmacy said this delay is causing confusion and disruption in access to this important vaccine. No protocol currently exists for the 2025-26 formulation. This means that in addition to narrower eligibility criteria imposed by the FDA, Oregonians may experience additional barriers to accessing COVID-19 vaccines at a pharmacy without a prescription until a protocol is adopted by the federal government. In response to this evolving situation, some pharmacies are now making changes to scheduled appointments. The board says once a protocol is available and adopted by the state, then pharmacists will likely be able to give out the vaccine, at least to some people. We recently heard from a local pharmacist on how he believes getting a vaccine will work at the pharmacy going forward.
Basically, we will have to ask them, are you at risk of complications from COVID? So if you are, then we will probably need some documentations in order to get you vaccinated. Most likely, insurance will probably require that as well. If the insurance doesn't cover it because patient's not eligible for it, then I would have to say, I do have to make sure the patient is eligible to get the vaccine. I cannot just override that. So in that case, it'll be really hard for patients to get the vaccine if they're not eligible for it, even if they're willing to pay out of pocket for it.
Now, by law, most health insurance plans are required to fully cover vaccines recommended by the CDC and the ACIP. But if you fall outside of the group they recommend for it, you may have a copay or even have to pay the full price of the vaccine. It all depends on your insurance. The CDC has the price for the vaccine listed at around $140. Now, those delays are in part why Oregon and Washington are joining California and Hawaii to form the West Coast Health Alliance. The goal of the partnership is to create and announce its own vaccine guidance separate from the CDC. Here's what the Multnomah County Health Officer has to say on this new alliance.
And I think what we're trying to do is get the band back together, so to speak, so that we can start to have local recommendations using trusted sources such as the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the Infectious Disease Specialists of America, these trusted physicians who are vaccine experts to make recommendations about who should get certain vaccines when we're talking about COVID, flu, and RSV vaccines this respiratory season.
Now, how they plan to do that is still being worked out. The director of the Oregon Health Authority said they're working as quickly as possible so they can ensure people don't pay out of pocket to get the shot. The Washington Department of Health signed a standing order into effect last week, allowing anyone in the state 6 months or older to receive the vaccine without a prescription. Well, coming up next on the story, results from a new KGW investigation looking into thefts from storage units. How often the crime is happening in the Rose City. That's when the story returns. We hear a lot about property crime in the city of Portland, and a new KGW investigation reveals widespread theft at storage units across the Rose City with lax security leading to millions of dollars in reported stolen items. And rarely are the thieves ever caught. These two men wiped out a single mother's entire unit in less than 20 minutes, drilling through a lock and loading everything onto a flatbed truck. Evan Watson analyzed public records, finding Portlanders reported close to 2,000 storage unit thefts over the past 3.5 years, averaging 10 thefts per week. Just 1% of those led to an arrest. Most people are left combing through ransacked units, hoping some of their valuables are left behind.
Bust a lock on these storage units, these are big facilities typically. You don't always have eyes on every single minute of every day on every locker. They, quick cut of the lock and then they're in and out. And, people don't all recognize each other there every single day. So they just start loading and unloading things and people don't think anything of it.
Evan Watson joins me now. So Evan, talk to me. How did you break down all this data?
Yeah, great question. So we use public records to get a look at these storage unit thefts across Portland. And notably on our website, we wanted to make this accessible for you all as well. So if you find this article, we have a table in there where you can search the thousands of cases that we found by dates that something occurred, by the location, by the money and what was reported, or you can scroll down if you're more of a map person, look at the pins that we made and find perhaps your storage unit, see how many reports have been made, what was stolen, when it was stolen. It's all interactive there on the website as well.
Wow, that's very helpful. Now, we know Portland Police disbanded its property theft unit last summer.
Right.
Does that have any impact here?
So in some ways, yes, because there are no detectives who are specifically assigned to investigate property crimes anymore. They're now in other units of Portland Police. But when we looked into the data, there are actually more storage unit thefts in 2023 than there were in 2024 and so far this year. So there's no direct correlation there saying property crime unit disbanded, big increase in storage unit thefts, but we still know that this is a very widespread issue as evidenced by the table and everything else we found.
Okay, Evan Watson, thanks so much.
Got it.
And if you want to catch Evan's full report, which includes an interview with the Multnomah County prosecutor, we have it streaming on our TV app, KGW Plus, which you can get for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. Well, coming up next on the story, a trip into the KGW vault for the anniversary of a remarkable journey that began in Oregon on today's date 27 years ago. The goal, make Free Willy free once and for all. That's next when the story returns. Okay, you may have noticed in recent days, gas prices are rising here on the West Coast. The main reason, refinery issues in the Puget Sound area and California, as well as an outage on the Olympic pipeline that carries fuel from Washington to Portland. Gas in Oregon has jumped 16 cents to an average of $4.14 a gallon. It's $4.49 in Washington. The national average is $3.19 a gallon. Well, today's date, September 9th, marks the anniversary of an event in Oregon that was witnessed by people all around the world. A movie star began a journey from the Oregon coast to a small town in Iceland. But it was no ordinary flight, as many of you will remember. Here's our coverage from the KGW Vault 27 years ago today.
This monumental day for Keiko started like any other, with a routine workout. Trainers say the unsuspecting Keiko eagerly swam into his medical pen, and his trainers easily slipped a sling around him. His journey had begun. Keiko's covered in ointment to help keep him wet. Trainers give every attention to detail and safety. They keep him cool, dumping buckets of ice into his temporary tank. Although this is goodbye to Oregon's beloved whale, the Free Willy Foundation says the Oregon Coast Aquarium should be proud.
This whale, when he arrived in Newport, was in relatively poor health, and for instance, he could only hold his breath for about 3 minutes when he arrived. Today, he can hold his breath for almost 20 minutes, so he's a dramatically different whale.
He's healthier, he's bigger, and we wish him all the luck in the world going to Iceland.
Not only has Keiko's health improved well in Oregon, his fame has as well. As the caravan moved out of the Oregon Coast Aquarium, Keiko's fans say farewell. Then Keiko's caravan heads to the Newport Airport. Inside his 28-foot by 8-foot tank, affectionately called his cradle, Keiko is surrounded by his trainers. 5 of them will move with him to Iceland. Keiko's transportation to Iceland is an enormous C-17. This Free Willy operation is arguably the most money spent on an animal, at least $12 million so far. But the Free Willy Foundation says what it stands for is priceless.
It is really showing the best side of the humankind. We're going into phase 2, which means we have succeeded.
The plane carrying Keiko made a rough landing in Iceland, blowing tires as it screeched to a halt. After about 2 hours, Keiko was transferred onto a flatbed truck, driven through the Icelandic town, and then lifted onto a barge, which took him back to a large contained pen in the same waters where he was born. Trainers eventually began escorting Keiko on long swims in the open ocean. They said he would approach other orcas, but he always returned to the trainer's boat and generally sought out humans instead of his own kind. He did make a journey to Norway on his own, nearly 1,000 miles, but once there, he was again attracted to boats and people. Keiko died of suspected pneumonia 5 years after his journey back to Iceland. Well, that's the end of our show, folks. Thanks so much for watching. The good stuff is coming your way next. And don't forget, everyone has a story to tell. If you ever miss an episode of The Story at 6:30, we re-air it at 8:30 and 10:30 p.m. on our TV app, KGW+, which you can get for free right now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. In the meantime, have a great Tuesday night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.